humans! Welcome to another transmission of Galactic Demystifying Science Alliance. Micky said he might be late today. There was some kind of worm-emergency. That's what I like about eating rocks, you know? Rocks never have emergencies.
Except when they're radioactive rocks and their crumbs end up on the control console.
There's any number of ways that those could have gotten there. Micky, what are you wearing? What is all that blue stuff?
Well, it's a long, gross story, but basically, one of my worms got way too big and exploded everywhere.
Oh no.
Yeah. And some kind of biofilm started growing on the walls of the wormatorium. I was gonna just watch it and see how it developed, for science sake, but then the smell started.
The one that smelled like someone had mixed sulfur and hydrochloric acid with dead worms and left them in the sun for a week?
Yep, that's the one. So I had to take the worm crop to the bathtub while I scrubbed down the wormatorium and... Hold on, let me take this off.
This is, again, why I prefer the rocks. There's never a wormatorium to clean, there's never explosions of biofilms. Things are pretty easy to work with.
Alright, where were we?
Before our lesson in deep space worm theory, we were just about to talk about all the ways the human world got better after they understood contagion. Because before germ theory, the humans would have assumed that there was something in the worm stink that actually made you sick.
Miasma.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to argue with that, but the smell sick and infected sick are very different matters.
Very different. Though, on Alba Floss, we know that microbe smells are pretty important. I'm not sure the humans have figured that out yet, though.
Yeah, you humans have been much more focused on technologies to fight infections instead of ones that help you cooperate with bacteria.
And those technologies are still kind of in the trial and error stage, even though the first antibiotic, a compound that prevents the growth of microbes without attacking human cells, was discovered almost 100 years ago.
Alexander Fleming, paying attention to a spot of mold, led to a technology that could reverse life-threatening infections. In a world filled with infectious agents ready to cause disease, humans had found an escape hatch.
Except, in some ways, it was more of a trapdoor than an escape hatch. Bacteria are powerful little critters, always ready to respond to changes in the environment. And when humans started using penicillin everywhere, the bacteria just shored up their defenses. Within a few years, there were already infections that didn't respond to any kind of antibiotic treatment.
Just a few decades after humans started eating penicillin like earth candy, 4 out of 5 infections were penicillin resistant. Human engineers came up with other treatments, and so it wasn't a complete disaster, but the effects built up over time. Widespread use leads to decreased efficacy, and resistance spreads.
The problem was, you humans didn't understand what antibiotics actually were. Koch's postulates and germ theory made it sound like there was a war between humans and pathogens that antibiotics were magical weapons in. Humans figured that they would let them once and for all triumph over infection, sickness, and disease.
But bacteria have a very different relationship to antibiotics. On a microscopic level, they're surrounded by them. Fungi and other bacteria produce antibiotic compounds and use them for communication. Earth scientists have evidence that microbes have been dealing with antibiotics for thousands of years, way before antibiotics were discovered.
Yeah, and bacteria change really quickly. So to figure out how long this had been around for, bacteria in the frozen ground in the north of planet Earth had to be looked at. There, scientists found 30,000-year-old bacteria that already had genes for resistance against vancomycin, an antibiotic that humans discovered on the island of Borneo in 1953.
And at some point, human scientists started thinking critically about the fact that almost all antibiotics have been isolated from the environment. They decided to look and see what happens if you feed microbes very small amounts of antibiotics. Way, way less than you'd ever use to treat an infection.
And what do you know? They found that antibiotics at low concentrations don't actually kill bacteria. Instead, the bacteria use the antibiotics to talk to each other. Instead of dying, the bugs just change their behavior. And in many cases, they actually grow better than they do without antibiotics.
So, it seems like the Koch-Henle postulates are a serious simplification of how microorganisms function in the complex ecological system that is a human body. Seems like a pretty fragile ecosystem, too. Humans barely last a century. And I actually slept a century one time traveling from Alba Floss to study another world in a different part of the galaxy. Talk about waking up refreshed.
It's no wonder that everything is so confusing when you've only got a century to figure things out. Nature tends to take its sweet time unfolding. Antibiotics and medicine are technologies that let you build the plane while you're flying on it. Like working on your fusion reactor while depending on it for all your food and warmth.
Or working on your wormatorium. Speaking of which, I ought to take a bath. Then give the bath a bath. Quinn?
Over and out, Mickey. But send me some of that biofilm. Got some scoping to do.
You got it.
Bye, humans!
Bye.